Hey, good morning. How's everybody doing?
Doing
We're
great.
yeah, doing great this morning. Has
Everybody,
every
welcome. No, go ahead, then.
I was just going to ask if everyone out there has thawed out yet, because I know most of the country was in that deep freeze. So we
That's for
got two
sure.
inches of ice here, and we're just starting to thaw out. So I'm grateful for that. But yeah, I hope you're all doing okay out there. Good morning, Carrie. Good morning, Jacqueline. And good morning, Kay Carl. We are so glad you are with us this morning.
Yeah, it's great to be
Yes,
among the land of the living, I tell you.
Yeah, isn't
that's
that the
right.
truth? Always is. Always is.
Well,
So,
we've
Kay
got a great.
Carl,
Go ahead.
go ahead.
Go
I'm
ahead.
sorry, Rodney. Go ahead.
No, I was just saying to everybody, welcome to the chat session. You're watching us on the This Way Network. And I'm Rodney Rippey. We got Nina with me, my wonderful co host. And we have Mr. K. Carl. And Mr. K. Carl, you are fantastic. All the things that you've been doing in education, and you are really a lightning rod as an author. I don't want to steal your thunder, man. Welcome back to the chat session.
Hey, thank you. Appreciate it. Glad to be with you guys this new year and look forward to chatting with you today and some more days coming up. Thank you.
That's
Appreciate it.
right.
Yeah. Last time we talked to you, Kay Carl, you were going to be traveling a
Yeah.
lot. Tell us where you've been and what you've been doing.
Well, the reason I've been traveling because I just released my second book. It
Oh,
came out early, about a month and a half ago, entitled Telling Conservatives the Truth.
Mm,
Leveraging the life empowering values of Frederick Douglass to save America. So we've been very busy traveling, setting up that book signing tour, and I'll be heading out again next week because the snow. I was supposed to be in Nashville this week. We had to postpone it because of the snow they had. They got like 7 inches of snow, I believe, and so we're
they
gonna
did.
restart that book signing tour next week and go all over the country. Primarily, we're going to go to Florida, starting off Florida,
Hmm.
mm.
Nashville. Then we go to Atlanta, Phoenix, Milwaukee, Detroit, Philadelphia, and
Wow.
keep on going. Keep on going.
Wow. Yeah, that is quite the tour. So, Kay Carl, tell us about the book. I didn't even know you were had this one so close to being ready. I think you'd
Mm-hmm.
mentioned before you were doing another one,
I think
but
last time we chatted, I
Mm-hmm.
shut everything down. I didn't go speaking. I didn't do social. I didn't do anything. I mean, I got up every morning at 6 o'clock in the morning. It went to like 12 midnight for about 5 months, 4 months,
mm-hmm,
and
Mm.
just writing this book, and finally got it done.
hmm
Um, the book, it is, I in the book, I contrast the lives of Frederick Douglass and Karl Marx. And what I
mm,
contend is Frederick Douglass, of course, is all about liberty. Karl Marx is all about government dependency. But when you contrast the lives of these gentlemen, a lot of things stand out. Both of them were born in
Mm-hmm.
1818.
hmm
Mm.
And Karl Marx really never had a real job in his life. His father was a lawyer. He went to a private school. He lived a life of pleasure and leisure. I mean, when you really think about it, Karl Marx was a poster child for white privilege. Now, you contrast
Mm.
with Frederick Douglass. He was born into slavery, didn't know his father. Matter of fact, the rumor was his father is the one that put him into slavery, and he's separated from his mother at birth. And so Karl Marx later on becomes a theorist about oppression. He wrote
hmm
about things he never experienced. Frederick Douglass
Mm-hmm.
had real life experiences about oppression, and he wrote about
hmm
his experiences, right? So I talk about Douglass' liberty message and compare
Right.
that to the government dependency message that Karl
Mm-hmm.
hmm
Marx espoused. And
hmm
I contend is the way we're going to save America and reignite America's passion for liberty is with that we have to rely on Frederick Douglass. He must become our leader. Just like
Mm.
the
hmm
left, the Marxists have their leader, Karl Marx. They made themselves after Karl Marx, call themselves Marxists. We need a
hmm
leader
Mm-hmm.
that's unassailable. You can't question
hmm
him. You can't attack him. You can't defeat him. That's Frederick Douglass. And so that's what the whole book is all about, to make people understand that Frederick Douglass, in my view, is America's greatest writer, thinker, and speaker when it comes to liberty and the U.S. Constitution. But while we are
hmm
leveraging that to fight Marxism and to reignite people's passion for liberty. The answer is Frederick Douglass, no one else.
Wow.
I see what you're saying. I'm intrigued to know how you arrived at this title. Excuse me, pardon me.
You know how
I know a
sometimes
lot
you
of
can,
people. Yeah, a
you know,
lot of
so
people would think
yeah,
it should be called telling liberals the truth. So why
yeah.
is it telling conservatives the truth?
Because a lot of times conservatives always want to point fingers, but when you point your finger, you got three of them pointing back at you, right? So sometimes it's not about what the other person's doing. What is that you're not doing or you can do better? You can't blame the opposition every time you lose. You look at yourself because you're not doing things right. And that's the whole thing about the message.
I love
and the other
that.
thing is, and what I'm saying is, if conservatives are really serious about defending liberty and defending the Constitution, you're not going to win without Frederick Douglass. So I want you to go ahead and put him on your team and give him the ball and let him run the plays.
Wow.
Because Douglass is a franchise player when it comes to liberty in the U.S. Constitution.
Yeah. I love the way you compare Marx and Douglass right there, especially with the idea that one is all theory that he has not lived out and doesn't know, and the other one is all experience that he has lived out these truths and he knows.
Yeah, and that's interesting because I don't think that's ever been done. And I was just curious. Because, I was curious because, okay, what is about this Douglass and Karl Marx? And when I found out that both of them were born in 1818, I said, oh my goodness, what a justification. And then I started thinking about, wait a minute now, as I started reading about Douglass and Karl Marx, Douglass had a newsletter called the North Star. Well, guess who was a subscriber to Douglass's newsletter from Germany? Karl Marx.
Ooh, wow.
So, and he cherry-picked Douglass' philosophy talking about serving humanity. And here's another thing about Karl Marx. Karl Marx died in abject poverty. Frederick Douglass died the equivalent of a 1%. He had $300,000 in savings. So all the things that Douglass was able to achieve in his life, writing 3 bestsellers, amassing $300,000 in savings, all those things would never happen on the economic system espoused by Karl Marx. It would never happen. So when you
your little
Yorkies
wanting to say hello.
Well, they want to go to the restroom, man. And it comes at the wrong time. And
Carrie wants to know what your puppy dog's name is.
This one here this is Spencer, and this right here.
Oh my goodness,
we call it Sassy.
Okay.
Yeah. And so Douglas the answer. Can I put this on pause and go ahead and let these dogs down so I can take a break?
Sure. Go ahead. You don't want to have an accident. So, I tell you, Nina, it's really incredible that, Karl, he's out there, he's traveling around, he's speaking. Now he's got a second book. Everybody, let me pop that book back up here. This is one of K. Carl's books, and it's Frederick Douglass, Republicans. That's Mr. K. Carl. He was actually at the Tea Party Patriots. He's actually speaking. We have to know a little bit more about that as well. And okay, no problem.
So for those of you who are just now joining us, or maybe you haven't heard K. Carl speak before, and I'm so glad you're here to hear him, because that is the way we actually got him on this program, was because he was speaking at an event that I attended. I had never heard him before, but I was so impressed with what I heard. And I knew that his message was one that all of America needed to hear. Because I love the title of his book, his first book, Reigniting America's Passion for Liberty, for the Constitution. So I knew everyone, excuse me, everyone needs to hear this. And that's why I contacted K. Carl and said, hey, would you be willing to come on? And we're so grateful that he is. And I was thrilled also because he had his book out already and I had bought it, and y'all have read it. I highly recommend it. And I can't wait to get your second book now. I want to hear more about that. And I want to hear too, how, as you've been, are you just now starting to go across the country with the second book?
Yeah, we started I started the last week of December. Then I kind of shut it down a little bit to after the new year. Yeah. So we're just not really just now start getting it going here.
Well, let me ask you, because I'm assuming that you had some kind of tour like that with the first book as well.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yes. Yes.
All right. How was your message received? Did you find a lot of opposition to it, or were there people who were, oh, I'm so glad somebody is saying this. This resonates with me. What were you seeing across the country?
I haven't received any type of negative vibes at all from any. I don't care what voting bloc you want to speak of, even from Black Democrats. They appreciate the truth, and they appreciate somebody giving them. Because what the book really does, it teaches you and empowers you how to become a better messenger of liberty, how to have conversations with people and not confrontations about what our founding principle is all about, that Douglas wrote about, and that the Douglas espoused. So that empowerment does not exist because nobody that I know of have come up with a persuasive messaging model that's based on the liberty message of Frederick Douglass. And so that's what we've been able to do. So we have this persuasive messaging model that teaches people how to have conversations, not confrontations, how to talk to anyone regarding your conservative values without the fear of being called a racist or Uncle Tom. It empowers conservatives how to improve their brand,
right?
How they can learn how to establish trust and credibility for themselves, so they can have conversations with people. So the book is really for people who identify themselves as liberty advocates, and also in the book I keep it real. And I'm like Frederick Douglass. As bad as the Republican Party is, the Democrat Party is worse. And so we tell the honest truth about both parties.
Can you, AK Carl?
Yeah.
Can you give me just like maybe the top 4 or 5 real major bullet points that Frederick Douglass stood for, and you feel needs to be more reflected in America today?
The first thing that comes to my mind is about the U.S. Constitution. I'm a graduate of a historical Black college, Alabama A&M University in Huntsville, Alabama, and I was taught, and this is still being taught today, that the 3/5 clause in the Constitution meant that blacks are 3/5 of a human being. And therefore the Constitution is a racist document. That's what I was taught, and it's still being taught. But as I started reading Douglas's writings, and not just about his life, but his writings, Douglas was at Glasgow, Scotland, 1861, I believe, or 1860. He was actually in a debate, and that question came up, and it was Frederick Douglass who gave clarity to the 3/5 clause that I'd never heard before. And what he said was, he said the 3/5 clause has nothing to do with the personhood of a Black individual. It was all about count the slave states wanted to count every Black person in slavery as one person, one vote. And that would give them a huge majority in Congress, because the Constitution reads that for every 30,000 citizens, you get one congressional representation. Well, they want to count every Black person in slavery as one person, one vote to boost their representation, because you had like 4 million Blacks in slavery in the South, right?
Right.
So the free state said, nope, if you free them, we'll let you count them as one person, one vote. But since you can't free them, we'll let you count. Doug said a Black person in a slave state is worth 3/5 of a vote, and a Black person in a free state is worth 5/5 of a vote in terms of representation, not in terms of personhood.
Value.
And it was Douglas who gave that clarity. And when I read that years ago, that's what turned my thinking right side up. And Douglas turned my whole thinking about politics right side up. I had a better understanding and appreciation for liberty and the Constitution and what the founding fathers intended in the Constitution. And so when you read the writings of a former slave about his admiration for the founding fathers and the Constitution, that makes a big difference, a huge difference. And so that's one of them. The other one is free speech.
Mhm.
Douglas wrote about free speech. He was in Boston. He had a speech entitled "A Plea for Free Speech in Boston," and Douglas said, "Quote, slavery." No, he said tyrants. Quote, tyrants cannot tolerate free speech because they know the power of it. I said, my God, that's practical to me. I can understand that. He wrote about immigration. Now,
Mhm.
we're dealing with this thing now with immigration, people coming across the border. 1868, Douglas gave a speech called Our Composite Nationality. He was asked to comment on Chinese immigration, the Chinese being brought here to work on the railroad. And Douglas said, let them come. He said, but there's a process that got to be followed. Douglas said, number one, he said they got to learn to speak English. Douglas believed there should be one language for the marketplace. Okay? You can speak whatever you want at home, but for the marketplace, you got to speak English. And Douglas said they got to understand the importance and the value of our Constitution. And Douglas said we got to mold them and help them to assimilate to become Americans, not just come across the border chaotically and don't even assimilate. So that opened my eyes too. Of course, Douglas wrote about the right of people keeping bear arms. So a lot of the things that are being attacked today, these liberties that we have, free speech, religious liberty, the right of people keeping bear arms, Douglas wrote about it. He spoke about it. And I think for us to save America and reignite America's passion for liberty, we need to leverage what Douglas had to say about then, because there's nothing new under the sun. The values that he embraced years ago stand the test of time, and we need to embrace them today because Marxists want to get rid of those things. Douglas said, no, we need to keep those things.
Okay, Carl, quick question.
Yeah.
Out of the candidates that are coming up in the election, who would you say most, who's closest to the ideologies of Frederick Douglass? And is there one, and should there be someone to step up?
You'd be surprised. Based on who's the closest, is Donald Trump. Because when you take a look at the policies that he put through when he was in office, he put policies through that he never got credit for. The economic prosperity policies he had for not just Black Americans, but for Americans. My retirement savings account was doing a lot better under Trump than right now. Okay. One thing Trump did to help those who are disadvantaged, he increased the funding to historical Black colleges and extended the funding. Obama didn't do that. Yeah. Obama didn't do that. Obama didn't increase the funding. Those presidents, those universities, every year a president came in office, every four years, they had to go to the White House every 4 years, go to the White House and beg the president for money every 4 years.
Wow.
And when Trump came in office, he gave them money. So what are y'all doing back? He said, we got to come every 4 years. And I said, no. I'm going to extend your funding to 10 years. You ain't got to come back and see me every year. So those kind of things. And now, there's some room for improvement for President Trump, most definitely. And he needs a little help because he's the based on policies, he's the closest. The President Biden, both Trump and Biden can be divisive, but Trump has some policies. It has policies in place that will bring unity and protect the citizens. I mean, the first duty of government is protection. Our borders are not being protected.
Right.
We don't need the government to provide for us. We need the government to protect us. And Trump was doing those things. So a lot of things that Trump was doing are definitely in line with what I call the life empowering values of Frederick Douglass: protecting free speech, adhering to the Constitution, protecting religious liberty, protecting our right to keep and bear arms. Those are things that Douglass advocated. And the right to keep and bear arms, Biden would love to take some of those things away. So I can't put him in the category of Frederick Douglass at all. Not at all. But Trump is the closest. The only thing he needs to do, or he should do, he needs to get into the writings of Douglass. I'll share something with you in a minute. He needs to get into understand the philosophy of Douglas a little bit more,
Mm-hmm.
and he needs to affirm publicly he's a friend of Douglas Republican. That'd be a game changer if he did that. I share this with you. My book got in the hand of a very affluent young lady down in Florida who read the book, my understanding, and gave the book to Trump, 45.
Wow.
And in one of his speeches recently, about 2 or 3 weeks ago, he made a comment. He said we should stop using the word conservative and talk about values. Well, that's the theme of my book. But my name did not come up in after he said those things
Yet.
So, but
I do remember.
Him.
Yeah, I do remember you talking a lot the last time you were here. Actually, every time you've been with us about voting your values and how so many people weren't doing that. It was like they're not even looking at the platforms of the candidates. They're just looking at, well, are they a good speaker? Do I feel good? Do I like what I'm hearing them say? But they're not looking at their platforms.
They're not looking at value. I used to be in that category now. I didn't look at values. I voted based on whatever the mainstream media had to say.
Wow.
And what the media had done, in this case, they've made Americans either you hate Trump. It's not about his policies. They just hate the man. And because the media has done a good job to smear his personality. Well, he needs to be empowered to overcome that. And I think we have the answer for it.
I've seen a lot of videos of someone going out on the street. They'll find someone and they'll ask them, how do you feel about Donald Trump? And that person will be, oh, he's just terrible. He's a terrible president. He's going to be a terrible, I hope he doesn't get into office. He's going to be a terrible president. And they'll say, why is that? What is it he did? Well, he was just bad. That's all they can say. He was just bad. They can't point to a particular thing. And then when they start saying, well, maybe it was the time he did, and they would name something, but it was something that Biden had done. But they were presenting it as if Trump had done it. And they were like, yeah, exactly. See, that's what I'm talking about. And everything they named was something Biden had done. And the person was agreeing, yes, that was terrible. And yet they didn't realize it was Biden. They assumed it was Trump because that's what the media had said.
I guess the one thing I would love to see, I refer to as 45, to improve on, and knowing that everybody has some room for improvement, is his tone. If he just clean that tone up.
Now, what do you mean by that, K. Carl?
It's not what you say, it's how you say it.
Right.
I mean, when you refer to Haiti, I don't want to use the word he used, but it's a 4-letter word, nation.
Yeah.
You call NFL players son of a bitches.
Oh, right.
That kind of thing. That's not necessary, because when he did that, you have young black kids, well, not just black kids, you have kids who look at NFL players as role models. So they said, why is the president calling them SOBs? Kind of thing.
Right.
But that wasn't necessary. So we got to take the high road and be Christ-like in our demeanor, in our language. Right. Be honest with you. And so I told somebody the other day, I was somewhere speaking, I said, we just got to pray for the man. He needs prayer. Prayer can change things. And the lady was arguing with me. I said, man, when's the last time you prayed for the president? When's the last time you prayed for 45? And she said she never has. I said, you're a believer, right? I said, didn't the Bible say you got to pray for your enemies? And so, but he can't improve. He can improve.
Right.
But he got to be willing to improve now.
So, got to be willing.
And so, but like he's going to win the primary, okay? He's going to win. DeSantis stepped out. Nikki Haley's on one left. She's not going to win. I mean, I don't know why she's still in it, to be honest with you.
Wow.
I think there's a lot of people who feel like she's actually in some ways too close to espousing what the other side believes. And if you're going to go with that, it might as well,
So they had to attack him because remember, he didn't come to the debates. He didn't show up to the debates, right?
So, but they brought him every time. They brought him to the debates because that's
all that stuff didn't work. I think what's going on with Trump, with all the attacks against Trump, has really made him more popular and a lot of sympathy. But the sympathy does not necessarily translate into votes. And that's one thing that they got to understand that don't mean people going to vote for you because they sympathize with you. Because they quote, they still think Republicans, conservatives are racist. So what they do, either they vote the opposition or they stay at home. Remember when he ran against ran against Hillary in the first time he ran, and over 1 million blacks stayed at home. Hillary was so bad.
Yeah.
Over 1 million blacks stayed at home, and then they couldn't go out and vote for somebody that they perceived to be a racist because the media portrayed him that way. So he got to overcome that race card and be effective. I think he can do it. And but that's some things strategically he has to do. And I'll be happy to share that with him if I get the opportunity.
I hope you will get the opportunity. That would be amazing, and I would love to see that happen.
If he does what we suggest that he does, he could drop the mic.
Okay, Carl, quick question. I mean, you get out and speak. Is there anything on demand where you have spoke, any recordings where people can go to? And please give your website out too.
Yeah, I can give you, and I got to get better with that. My son told me the other day, he said, Dad, don't be a dinosaur when it comes to social media because dinosaurs are extinct. So I'm gonna improve and not be such a social media derelict. But if you come to my website, it's kcarlinc.com, KCARLINC.com. And actually, when you go to my website, you scroll down to the bottom. There is a video there.
Oh, you got it.
Of me speaking. I did a presentation in Oklahoma City back in October. That's on there. But I brought some people in who are experts in this to set up my YouTube page. I got a lot of videos out there where I've been doing this for 15 years. I got a lot of videos out there, a lot of printed stuff.
Right.
I just got to have them put it together because I just haven't had the time. Or I'm making excuses. I just have not focused on social media like I should. Because people.
Well, I mean, Carl, you got to utilize. I mean, that's a platform that you can reach millions of people.
Yeah.
So don't, you have, and again, so many people are looking for answers and looking
you're exactly right.
solutions.
And I must say too, I had a meeting last week. Hosting a podcast is in my future, my near future.
Wow! All
wonderful.
right. So we'll be looking forward to that, man. We really will.
You got to get it out there because people are not reading books like they have did in the past. I'm head to the studio here next week. I'm gonna go ahead and put the book in the audio form, ebook form, so people can turn their car into a university and play the audio of the book.
Audio books.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. So
Very good questions this morning.
Will you let us know when that podcast begins and how we can get the message out to others? We'd love to give you a plug here on this show. Let people know how they can come find you. And is it going to be a weekly thing or are you going to do it daily? How's that going to work?
It'd be hard to do it daily. Very tough because of my travel that I'm doing. But and I think we'll do it weekly. I'll probably do it on Sunday night, Sunday evenings, and get it out there.
So,
and may do some special recordings throughout the week. But they wanted me to commit to a daily podcast. I couldn't do that, but weekly, I think I can work out.
So when does that begin? When does your?
I'll know in 2 weeks. All
right.
All right.
Will you come back and tell us?
Oh, most definitely.
There you go.
I'm sure we'll collaborate.
And where can people find your book, your second book?
You will not find it on Amazon. When I wrote my first book, I'll go speak, and next thing I know, people tell me they can't find my first book on Amazon. So I got tired of playing those games. So you won't find it on Amazon. I'm not going to put it on Amazon. And so I'm driving you to my website, and that's my website. kcarlinc.com. You can also type in FrederickDouglasRepublicans.com, and on that URL, that also take you to my website if it's something simple to remember. But kcarlinc.com.
There it is.
Or FrederickDouglasRepublicans.com or .org.
Nice. There you go. Wow, man, that's exciting. Well, I mean, and also, coming from the entertainment industry, a lot of books turn out to be movies as well, or great documentaries.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you got a great story, man.
Yeah, I can't wait to hear more.
When you get the book, and we'll make sure we put in the mail to you today, that when you go to chapter 2, there's a story that I tell, and I share it with you. And this, you can't make this stuff up, Rodney. You can't make it up. So I live in the Birmingham area, right? So the story is that my brother's at a restaurant. To get an idea of what we're dealing with. My brother's at a popular restaurant here in Birmingham, and he was sitting down having lunch, and he saw a guy pull up in a very luxurious car. And it was a high school friend of his from 40 years. And so when he came inside the restaurant, they started talking. My brother, my brother's so impressed with the car he was driving. It was a Bentley. And my brother said to him, "Brother, man, how you doing? God, what are you doing these days?" I cannot make this stuff up. I'm telling you verbatim what he told my brother. He said, "Rodney, I get paid by George Soros to play the race card." My brother said, "What?" My brother recognized the name George Soros. He said, "What did you say?" He said, "I get paid by George Soros to play the race card." And they continued the dialogue. Then he asked my brother, he said, "What are you doing now?" He said, "Well, I woke up my brother K. Carl, and he teaches conservatives how to trump the race card."
Oh, I love that.
And so that part of that chapter, first part of the chapter, talks about the dialogue they had. And at the conclusion of them talking, when my brother broke down what the FDR engagement strategy is all about, how we empower people to trump the race card, my brother said, "I saw a glimmer of awareness in his friend's eyes." And he realized that his race baiting tactics that he learned from George Soros does not work on someone that's a Frederick Douglass Republican and espouses the liberty message of Douglass. It flat out doesn't work.
Wow.
I love that. I love that. That's tremendous. So I just wanted to let you know, by the way, Carrie is just reporting to us that she just ordered your book off of Amazon.
Sure, the first one, not the second one.
Okay. All right. Well, that's
that was
probably
the first book. I was popping up the first book so everybody could see the cover.
Yeah, that's the first one. The first was entitled Frederick Douglass Republicans.
There you go.
That's the first book.
The movement to reignite America's freedom, America's passion for liberty.
Now, if you go to my website, you'll see the image for my second book, which is entitled Telling Conservatives the Truth. And the subtitle is Leveraging the Life Empowering Values of Frederick Douglass to Save America. And the reason why that subtitle is so important, the way we're going to save America, we got to find common ground with people who may not vote the way we would like them to vote. And the way we find common ground, we got to focus on values. And the reason why we focus on values, because values unite, issues divide. And those values become the common ground. What are some of those values that we're talking about? Respect for the U.S. Constitution. That's important to save in our republic. Respect for life, the belief in limited power of government. We'd like to keep more than the money that you make. Economic prosperity, our free market system, free speech, religious liberty, legal immigration. We can't have chaos at the border with children separated from their parents and all the disorganization that's going on there. You can't survive. It's hard to survive something like that. And then there's other values, the right to vote, the right of people keeping bear arms. Douglass wrote about women's rights as terms of women's suffrage, voting. And there are several other values that Douglass wrote about. Douglass even wrote about parental school choice. Douglass wrote about school choice.
Wow.
And so when you think about it, when you leverage what a former slave had to say about liberty and his oppression, you cannot win an argument with a runaway slave about his admiration for the founding fathers and U.S. Constitution. You can't win it. Just listen to it, because he's done something we haven't done. He was a slave.
Right.
Yeah.
Wow.
All right. I'm going to ask you the loaded question now,
Sure.
okay, Carl. Who should Trump pick as a running mate?
Woo. I like to see Rodney Adam Rippey. But no, that's a very good question. I mean, I've been thinking about that. No one that was in the Republican primary come to my mind. I don't think it's Tim Scott. I don't think it's Nikki Haley. I don't think it's the young man from Ohio, Ramaswamy.
I've
I don't
heard
have a good.
Byron Donalds floated as an idea. What do you think of
What
that?
would be the purpose of that? Because I was on a radio show. They asked me about Tim Scott being Trump's vice president choice. I said, what would be the purpose of that? And they said, well, help to get the black vote. Well, if you want to get the black vote, you're not going to pick Tim Scott. He ain't the one. Matter of fact, Trump can get the black vote without Tim Scott and Brian Donaldson. And he can get more of the black vote if he do some things that we have in mind that he should do in terms of strategy. But
I tell you, though, the reason Byron Donalds floated to my mind was because he seems to be a strong constitutionalist.
Yeah, I don't have an answer to your question right now. I'm still doing my research on that and checking folks out.
Well, that'll be interesting. Yeah,
I don't know.
I can't wait to hear your thoughts.
I don't know
on that. Yeah, I want someone.
My thing is, do we want somebody that's in politics now? I don't know. See, I don't want somebody that's in politics now. Well, I don't know. I'm looking. I'm researching. I'm keeping my eyes open, but I don't know about that.
So what do you want? Let's say we don't know a particular person, but what are you looking for?
Somebody understands the Constitution, adheres to the Constitution, has a pro-business mindset, and more importantly, that's a unifier. We need to be unified as a nation. That's big. And that's strong. I don't think it's Ben Carson. I don't see that. He's an academic. He's a smart guy.
Right.
But we need somebody and he's a constitutionalist. Here's what concerns me. I think we got to get away from personality politics. After Trump goes away, what are we gonna do? We might find anybody got the personality of Trump.
Right.
So we got to get away from personality politics and focus on values. So what's the governor from, is it Iowa? That comes to mind. I think it's Iowa. I'm not sure. But there's a female governor. I think it's Iowa.
There's a governor from South Dakota.
South Dakota, that's who it is.
Yeah.
She comes to mind.
Hold on a minute. I know who you're talking about, and all of a sudden I can't think of her name. It's not Christy Noem, is it? Is it Christy Noem? Carrie's saying it's Christy Noem.
Okay.
So, I think that's right. So, yeah.
But any of the people who are in the primary, I was not impressed with the candidates in the primary. None of them. If any of them would be, if I had to put them in the pecking order, I'll put probably Ramaswamy at the top because of his youthfulness. The other ones I'm not high on.
Yeah. I liked Vivek Ramaswamy a lot.
Hey, Carl, quick question. You said that you don't really want somebody that's been in politics before. Do you think the American people would trust a 30 or 40-year-old someone to come in with this Frederick Douglass viewpoint? And where is he or she?
I think so. If they're charismatic enough and they can articulate it, I think Ramaswamy can be groomed to become a Frederick Douglass Republican. The thing I'm thinking, the reason why I'm saying somebody out of politics, when you find somebody that's in politics, they're already part of the inner circle in DC, and that network is tight. And they have blue chips that they play with one another, or they owe somebody something. We need somebody outside that I call it the corrupt circle,
Mm-hmm.
who can come in and get rid of some of this corruption and not play
Right.
games with the American people. That's one thing that Trump did. Trump was not a politician. He came to D.C. He wasn't part of that ring, and they got upset because he came in and not adhering to them.
And I think that's why they hate him so much.
That's right. The established Republicans, the Bushes, that's why they hate him, because he wasn't part of that cabal.
He won't dance the dance.
Matter of fact, he wasn't part of the elitists in both sides of the party. That's what I'm talking about. Because you got elitists in the Democrat Party and the Republican Party that work together. He wasn't part of that. He was breaking that up. He was bringing the grassroots people in. He was bringing his own people in. He wasn't looking at the elitists in those two parties that's in D.C. That's what I'm talking about, Rodney.
All right. So
I want somebody outside of that really understand the powers with the people, the powers not with the politicians in D.C.
Yeah. All right. So here is the question of the hour from Carrie. K. Carl, are you willing to consider being vice president?
Wow.
No, I'd rather stay behind the scenes, and I enjoy my. No, you know what? You never say no.
No.
You don't know how when you think you got God figured out, God will throw you a change up.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
So that's not my preference right now. Let me put it that way.
Right. I can see that, but I cannot picture you not stepping up if your country called for your service.
Well, that's in my blood. I did it when I was an officer in the military. Willing to step up, make that sacrifice when that moment called.
And thank you for your sacrifice.
Yeah. But I think there's a lot of people a lot smarter and better than I am when it comes to doing that.
I don't know, man. You've got this thing pretty much dialed in doing the research that you have and articulating things the way that you do. You know, it does open up conversation for people to sit down, come to the table, and have some reasonable conversation, because everybody's trying to figure this thing out. And the election's coming up, you know, there's things going on in the world, and we really need a strong person that's going to step up and make sure that they hold the line and that America is respected, not only in business, but our, you know, our affairs. And
I agree with that.
You know, and we're not the savior to the world. You know, we don't want people thinking that we're this big bully that's jumping in on things. But however, you know, we have to hold our respect around the world as well.
Yeah, no, Brian, that's a very good point. One thing that's been bothering me, this whole thing that's going on with Hamas and Israel. We're funding both sides of that. We give foreign aid to Israel. And then the administration just gave several $1 billion to Iran when they had that hostage exchange. They're using that money to fund Hamas. So we're funding both sides of this. And so, and we're funding both sides with Russia and Ukraine, because we're giving munitions and aid to Ukraine. And when Biden shut down the Keystone Pipeline and start buying petroleum from Russia, now Russia's using the money that we're buying oil from them to fund the war. So you're exactly right. We need people in office, what I like to be involved with, who understand and really adopt and accept the Frederick Douglass Republican philosophy of liberty. That's when you ask me a question, who's out there? I don't know anybody out there that really gets that. That really gets it. Because it's so sad, because they don't view Douglass as a major thought leader when it comes to liberty in the U.S. Constitution. You can't get better than Douglass. I mean, who is going to be? It's none of the founding fathers. Because, you know, they weren't slaves. But Douglass was a slave and wrote about his admiration for the founding fathers. And matter of fact, Lincoln was wise enough to bring Douglass in as an advisor to help him, because he said at one time, because of the Civil War, he said, the United States is a house divided. I need some unity here. And who did he lean on as for advice? Frederick Douglass. So thank God we have a literary legacy of Frederick Douglass that we can lean on today.
Mm-hmm.
to help us to bring healing to our nation, racial healing, to be strong, what it takes to be strong in terms of protecting America.
Okay, Carl,
And
do
taking
you
our
feel
borders.
that we need to teach this Frederick Douglass, uh, viewpoint more in our
Oh
schools?
yeah, yeah, yeah. Because they're not getting it. What they're getting,
Mm-hmm.
Rodney, they're getting the Marxist uh, sleight of hand indoctrination. They're getting that heavy. It's very subtle, but it's there. Um, funny you mentioned it. My brother and I, we're actually working on a curriculum. It's
Mm-hmm.
called the Frederick Douglass Liberty Curriculum, where we will get this curriculum into our public school system, into
Mm-hmm.
our education system, and we're breaking down the liberty message of Douglass. What did Douglass say about the U.S. Constitution? What is it about his life? Why is his life so inspiring? What did Douglass say about racial healing in this nation that we're
Mm-hmm.
dealing with? And some people want to keep that alive to make sure we stay divided. So I think Douglass is the forgotten prophet. I think Douglass' message of liberty is not being taught because Douglass is not treated as a scholar, as a thought
Mm-hmm.
leader. I
Mm-hmm.
talked to a PhD guy the other day who majored in history. He got very little on Douglass. I know more about Douglass than he knows, and I just had my individual reading. But he has his PhD in it in history,
Wow.
and so
Wow.
that goes to show you that reason why Douglass is not being taught, in my opinion,
Mm-hmm.
because Douglass' philosophy and his thinking does not align with those who want to push Marxism into this country and transform this country to a socialist country. That's not Douglass. Douglass is all about liberty, individual empowerment, and our God-given rights. That's not Marxism. And Douglass believes in private property ownership.
Mm-hmm.
That's not Marxism. Douglass said one time, Douglass was in Baltimore. He was speaking. He was speaking to standing room only of black folks, mostly pastors. He said three things: save your money, buy land, build schools. And notice now, he didn't say saving money, buy land, and send them to a public school. He says build schools, meaning that
Mm-hmm.
you need to take over the education of your child. And in the book, I break that down where Douglass espoused parental school choice based on the situation he dealt with when he was in Rochester, New York, where the Rochester School Board tried to force Douglass to send his daughter Rosetta to an inferior black school outside his district. In his district, it was a high performance school, but it was segregated, it was all white. Douglass said, my money should follow my child. I'm in this district. There's a high performance school, and y'all need to integrate the school so my daughter can go to the school. Why you want to force me to send my daughter to an inferior school outside my district? So what Douglass did basically, when that didn't happen, he pulled his daughter out of the school system. He brought her home. He brought in, he homeschooled her. He brought in a tutor for her. Then later on, he got into a private school.
Wow.
And Douglass wrote a letter. I can paraphrase this in the book. He wrote a letter to the headmaster of that school system that really kicked his daughter out. He said, I'm happy to inform you that you have not succeeded in denying my child the privilege of an excellent education. Douglass was a proponent of parental school choice because that's what he did with his own daughter, Rosetta.
Wow. Yep.
I love that. You know what? One of the things I love about Douglass and about your message is that you're not saying, when you say that values unite, issues divide, at the same time, you're not saying that we should roll over, appease everyone. You've actually talked before about agitation, about being willing to agitate, but with a level of respect and regard for, a love for the people that we are trying to win over. Tell me more about that. I remember you talking about Douglass, and I guess it was his former slave owner and the relationship that they had back and forth.
Yeah, Douglass is so comprehensive. Douglass is, there's so many ways I can go with that question because that brother wrote a lot. You talk about his relationship with his former slave master. One thing Douglass did, I probably could have done it. I think it was 10 years after Douglass escaped from slavery. he wrote a letter back to his former slave master, which was his father.
Mm-hmm.
And he said to him that later, he said, look, he said, I forgive you for all the things you did to me. He said, Douglas said to him, you can come to my house anytime and eat inside my house and not outside like you make me eat outside. And Douglas said, I'm going to use you as an example how men ought to treat each other. So what I noticed is Douglas didn't take the position and say to him, you need to apologize for what you've done to me. He didn't say that.
Mhm.
Douglas
Mhm.
showed love first and said, I forgive you.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Douglas did that first. He said, all the things you did to me. And Douglas said that letter, he said, now, until you, he said, I want you to free all 400 of your slaves.
Mhm.
He said, until you do, I'm going to talk about you in my books. I'm going to write about you. I'm going to write about you. I'm going to write about you in my blogs and my tweets. You know, I'm going to call you out.
Gracious.
Within a year, because of Douglas's agitation and persistence,
Mhm.
that slave master freed all 400 of his slaves within a year. And that was 19 years, maybe 18 years before the Emancipation Proclamation was signed.
Mhm.
All because of
Wow.
Douglas' agitation and Douglas' love approach. Those two put
Mhm.
together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
So when Douglas heard he had done that, what was his response?
Douglas sent a second letter back to his master. Douglas said, I've heard from a close friend of ours that you freed all 400 of your slaves. He said, this sir is good news. And not only that, you brought my grandmother that you put out in the pasture like a horse, you brought her into your own house and you're taking care of her like a Christian should. Take care
Wow.
of someone. And so Douglas said that this proves that agitation works.
You know, I mean, Carol, I'm dealing with a lot of different people who have a lot of opinions on things, and the people have this deep confusion that how people who had Christian Judeo, beliefs were ever capable of the inhumanity side of having slaves. And so that's the whole thing that is still trying to be figured out. And again, it goes back to thinking, of course, that these people were less than a human being, and they justified that.
Yeah.
And it's pretty heavy. I mean, and these things are still affecting how we deal with one another till this very day.
Yeah.
That's the thing that's creating so much divide. And honestly, we have a major problem with honesty. I mean, putting it on the table, and people have to admit and come to the table and say, yeah, that was pretty dirty what we
Yeah.
did.
Yeah.
And
Mhm.
how do we undo the damage for so many years? I mean, this is a thing that needs to be discussed and really worked on, because I think that's the key problem that is dividing things. Because when people, when you hear people talk about certain things, people have this strange, they have conversations. I've heard so many different varieties of this, and I'm like, the only thing that's going to solve this is some serious, honest, conversations,
There
and
has to
people are
be.
just going to have to lay it on
And,
the
and
line.
and you know what? It has to be honest, and there has to be forgiveness on both sides.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
That's the
Mhm.
problem. We're trying to make forgiveness on one side. No, forgiveness got to be on
Mm-hmm.
both sides. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
you got to apologize for how you mistreated me, and I need to apologize for generalizing that you're a racist.
Mhm.
Yes. So I think that's what the other thing
Yeah.
is. You just said something very important, that in terms of the honesty,
Mm-hmm.
and Douglas said, he said the most brutal slave masters were Christians,
Mm-hmm.
because they
Mhm.
felt that they were ordained to do these things.
Right.
So by
Lord have
reading and
mercy.
studying Douglas, what I learned is the question is not to ask, are you a Christian? That's not the right question.
Mm-hmm.
The question to ask is, what kind of Christian are you?
That's a good question.
Are you the one that compromise your values, and you're very selective how you interpret the gospel, or are you a Christian champion where you're going to live up to the gospel and live it?
That's right.
That's the difference. Don't just tell me you're a Christian. What kind of Christian are you?
That's a good question.
Are you a Christian chump or are you a Christian champion? That's the question.
Amazing. Yeah, I think that's getting down to the the real deal, because there's a lot of people who will put a label on something, but what is the weight? What is the quality of your walk, your talk, your faith, your testimony, and your life? You can call yourself whatever you want, but if it's counterproductive to other human beings and not taking care of them, that's some pretty serious stuff.
Yeah, and why was this question of Christianity? So in the book, I really break down. The book I'm really excited about the second book.
You should.
The book is a uber massive, intense into this whole philosophy of engagement that we came up with. And in the book, I break down, and I didn't do this in the first book, but I break down that the Frederick Douglass engagement strategy is based on, number one, the liberty message of Frederick Douglass. Is based on the diversity engagement strategy of the Apostle Paul. And the outreach ministry of Jesus Christ. So let me just whet your appetite with the Apostle Paul piece. Paul was commissioned by God to take the gospel to the Gentiles, people of different ethnicities.
That's right.
Different races. So when you really think about it, Apostle Paul, he was a diversity outreach specialist. Okay? And by occupation, the Apostle Paul, he was an attorney and he was a tent maker. God called the Apostle Paul and commissioned him to establish a big tent. And what do conservatives say all the time when it comes to diversity engagement? We got to have a big tent.
Right.
Yeah.
So when we look at Paul's ministry, there were at a minimum 3 concepts he embraced to improve his brand. Because think about it, the Gentiles shook with fear when they heard Paul's name, because remember, he was persecuting the Christians. He was murdered. But now all of a sudden he became a Christian evangelist, and the Gentiles saying, "Look, he's trying to trick us. He's trying to get us to become Christians so he can kill us too."
Right.
So one of the first things that Paul embraced, and I talk about this in the book, one of the first things that Paul embraced to help him improve his brand so he can communicate with those he was trying to evangelize to, he changed his name. He went from Saul to Paul.
Right.
And the word Paul was more appealing to the Gentiles, right? And when I tell conservatives in the book, we got to change our name. The word conservative has a racist connotation. The name Frederick Douglass is more appealing. So get rid of the word conservative. Stop calling yourself that. Don't use it. It doesn't work. Instead, I'm a Frederick Douglass Republican. So when you take Douglas' name, Frederick Douglass, and you add the word Republican to it, now you created an oxymoron where you create a mystery in a person's mind. What does that mean? That's when you have an opportunity to control the narrative. Paul changed his name. We got to change our name, because when you change your name, it denotes a transformation. The word conservative is so demonized, and because of missteps by conservatives and Republicans in '64, get rid of the word. Stop using the word. Matter of fact, when you go to my website, scroll down to the bottom, you're going to see an image of Rush Limbaugh. Play that Rush Limbaugh clip. It's about a minute long. Rush Limbaugh said in 2018, stop using the word conservative. Get rid of the word. Don't call yourself that. And what a lot of people don't know, 9 months before he made that comment, I got a call from a friend of mine who had a friend who was Rush's executive producer. She got a call from her executive producer friend for Rush Limbaugh and Rush, and told her to tell me, okay, Carl, we're watching him. We like what he's saying. Keep it up. 9 months later, Rush articulated what we've been talking about 10 years 10 years before. Stop
Wow.
using the word concern. Get rid of it. Embrace Frederick Douglass Republican.
K. Carl, we're going to have you back. Nina, we're out of time.
I know it always goes so fast. Yeah. Oh, I'm so glad you were here though, and I can't wait to hear more. I know you're going to be very busy the next few months, but will you come back?
Sure. Look forward to it.
Yeah, we would appreciate that so much. Thank you so much for being on with us this morning. And thank all of you out there. Thank you to all of our viewers, Carrie, AC, Ariel. Yeah, several of you. I'm not getting all the names. Robin, Jacqueline, Ace. We're so glad all of you were with us this morning. And yeah, we just lost K. Carl. But y'all join us again next time.
That's right.
We'll see you next Monday here on the This Way Network.
Have a blessed week, everybody. God bless. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.